Hey everyone, welcome to a very special episode of 4GQT, and today we have a very special guest, the Blurred Girl. And on the panel with us is Paris and PK. And Karama, can you introduce yourself and tell a little bit about yourself?
Sure. What's up, everybody? I'm Karama Horne, aka the Blurred Girl. I'm a culture journalist, content creator, and I tell everybody my beat is at the intersection of geekdom and diversity. I have a regular column over at SYFY WIRE, and I also have obviously the Blurred Girl website and my little podcast, which morphed into a live show on Twitch in the middle of the pandemic last year. The Blurred Girl Live, which is on Tuesday and actually now Thursdays on Twitch. So yeah, I'm excited. Professional geek like you guys. Happy to be here.
Dope.
Awesome.
That was a mouthful right there.
So one of the things that we always like to know is, how did you get started? What got you into this, and what was your very first step into?
What's really funny about this question is that I've been a geek my whole life. And I also come from a family of geeks. So I didn't know that was weird. Like, a lot of people like, oh, when was the first time, like, you were bullied for being a geek or whatever? And I'm like, I'm a Black woman. I was bullied for that first. Like, I didn't know the geek part was strange until I got to college. And I was like, and then nobody knew what I was talking about when I was making like all these geek references or anime references. And so it's a funny origin story, I guess, because I grew up watching Star Trek. We had a family account with Crunchyroll when everybody thought I was talking about sushi. Nobody knew what that was. Like, so my mother is not from this country. She's from Bermuda. So I grew up watching a lot of different as a lot of people know who are first gen, you watch a lot of TV from different countries. So I'm used to watching Indian Bollywood movies, Korean soap operas, anime. Like, subtitles weren't like strange to me. And having like discourse with my dad over like the difference between, or why I thought Star Trek was better than Babylon 5, things like that. So I didn't know any of that was weird until much, much later. Sure, I got bullied for all kinds of things, but I don't think anybody was looking at me thinking, oh, you're a nerd. There was plenty to get to before that. So I'm actually an editor by trade. I was doing editing and graphics for over 16 years for TV networks and advertising and things like that. And geekdom was my hobby, like on the side. I would say, and I started the Blurred Girl website. It actually started as a Tumblr, like 2010, 08. Like, it's been around for a minute, where I would just park things that I thought were interesting, specifically black and POC comic book characters and creators and artists, things like that. I would say 2017 is when my geekdom and my editing and sort of all of the parts of my life collided. And then I was able to really look at this as sort of a career. Because trust me, had anybody told me when I was 15 years old that I could make a career out of reading comics and watching movies, college would have gone very differently. High school probably would have gone very differently. But 2017, I'm freelance editor, independent contractor, as I have been for years, but I was really doing a lot of promos. And the place that I was freelancing, a small company called Black Spot here in New York, they got a contract. They did a lot of NBC stuff. So for people who don't realize, NBC Universal owns SYFY, Fandango, Rotten Tomatoes, USA, A&E. They own, well, actually, no, not A&E necessarily, but they own a lot of different smaller companies. So they were doing a lot of work for USA, and SYFY was going to have this big push at San Diego Comic-Con. And it was, I think, their second year doing it. And they kept saying, like, do we have any editors? Didn't we know anybody who knows anything about comic books? Because we're going to go to Comic-Con and we need people. And I remember my assistant saying, like, has anybody ever had a conversation with Karama ever? because and so I was subcontracted as one of the editors, like a team of editors. For those of you who've gone to San Diego Comic-Con, I think it's a Marriott that's right next door. It might be the Sheraton. I think it's the Marriott. That big hotel that's attached to the convention center. They bought out a floor and just turned everything into like a huge studio. So I was in a room with a bunch of other dudes for the entire weekend, but it was a free ride to San Diego Comic-Con and free hotel, free room and board. And that's sort of where everything not clicked. It's just everything kind of connected, because when you're a freelancer and you're thrown into whether or not it's a news situation like a truck, or whether or not you're on location, you're working with a lot of other freelancers. So everybody's coming from different backgrounds. But because this was put together so quickly, there was a lot of people in there that didn't know what they were looking at. So it turned into like, what people yelling, like, what Disney character is this? I'm like, that's Naruto. That's not okay. Who's the old guy on the screen? Like, that's Peter Capaldi, Doctor Who. Also not how you spell Doctor Who. How are you in here? What's happening? So I started helping a lot of there's a couple of producers there that would like kind of run things by me. And I sort of was de facto assistant producer that weekend. And then I was asked to pitch a show. I pitched 3. And my little tiny show, which turned into an interstitial, was picked up by SYFY for the 2018 season. And there were little interstitials called SYFY WIRE News, and they would just come up in between SYFY WIRE Blast, and would come up in between shows. So if you're watching Z Nation, you might have caught that show. And sometimes I was an executive producer on that, but sometimes when the talent wasn't there, I was also talent. And so people started talking to me more like, oh, you like really know this stuff. I'm like, yeah. So, well, maybe you'd like to host, be a host and sing at, Emerald City Comic-Con, or maybe like you'd like to join us for this, podcast event stuff. So SYFY asked me to do more things. And then 2018 came around, and that was sort of where everything came together. And I just want to preface this by saying I wasn't just sitting there doing nothing. Like, I had been doing things for TheBlerdGurl and interviewing people and writing content. And I was doing all the things so that if somebody ever said to me like, hey, have you ever interviewed? I'd go, yes, here's my reel, or yes, here's some of my writing. So I've been doing that for 6-7 years just for fun when people came calling. And basically 2018 was the year, because at the beginning of 2018, Black Panther dropped, and at the end of 2018 was Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. So when everybody said, do you know any Black women who know geekdom, or any Black nerds who, I would come up in a Google search for Blurred. I would come up in Google searches for things that I'd done. And that was sort of by design. But then I also had to obviously back that up. So I was lucky enough. SYFY then asked me if I wanted to be on the red carpet for Black Panther, and sort of that I think would be where my on-camera career took off, because I had been on red carpets before, but as crew. But now I was holding, the mic and having conversations. And it's funny because all of that theater training from college and everything finally came to all those theater classes finally had some use and some purpose. So that's sort of a very long-winded way of telling my little origin story. And then things kind of took off from there. I would say one thing that I was very clear with SYFY, though, was that at this time I still was kind of working as a full-time editor. I told them, I really appreciate this opportunity, but if the only time that you call me was for this or other Black History Month things, I'll drag you on Twitter myself. So, there was a person that was there that was, he's no longer with SYFY, and he actually is part of the LGBTQ community. And he was like, yeah, no, they've got a lot of work to do in the diversity department. And trust me, this is not the only thing we're going to have you do. I think my years and years of editing, graphics, producing, and, even some of the acting, like I said, that I did back in college, all sort of came together, and they've always been in my arsenal. But it was just funny. People would go, hey, do you know anybody? I was like, yeah, I do that. Well, anybody who could write a bid for? Yeah, I do that too. What do you need?
Yes, that's a classic example of opportunity, right?
And I think my secret weapon is being a Black woman. I've been in the room, but nobody ever sees me.
Right.
It's like Black Lady Sketch Show.
It definitely can be used as a superpower, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask
Yeah.
you. I know that you mentioned that you were on the red carpet for the time at Black Panther, and for your very first time on the red carpet with the microphone, was that nerve-wracking? Were you nervous? Anything like that at all?
I was less nervous about interviewing people because I'd done that so much, whether or not it was written or like this, like we're doing, like pre-recorded or something. I was more nervous, and I'd also been crew. But when you're crew, you only have one or two jobs, like hold the cable, hold the light, hold the mic. I was more nervous about the culture of red carpets. And that's one thing that I wasn't aware of. Like, if you're not, we talk about in comics, like the big two, like Marvel and DC. Well, on red carpets, if you're not one of the big, like 3 or 4, like a major network or like E! News or something like that, you're crammed into a space that's about the size of this box that I'm sitting in right now, with a bunch of other people with just enough room to get your arm out to ask, a question. And there, you get real cozy with people. And it was really about leaning on my skills and then leaning on the skills of other people I knew, because it's not just about the stars. They're being ushered along. Many times there's their handler, which is their manager or their agent or something. And you have to make sure that they not only see where you're from, but that they see you. You make eye contact. You tell them, I want them next. And you have to be not rude, but aggressive about it. There are people that are rude, but yeah. And so that it was that sort of, I was prepared for the interviews, but I wasn't prepared for the melee that really feels like the stock exchange trying to get people's attention. So that part really was nerve-wracking, but I was really lucky and able to get some great interviews with people that I'd interviewed before for either my podcast or other things that saw me and they would like kind of come over. And I interviewed as many people who I would talk to. That footage got sent back to SYFY, and SYFY only used some of it, but I learned a lot. I learned an incredible amount that day. And it's funny. Sometimes I look back at that. I'm like, oh, I'm standing wrong. Oh, my hair is wrong. Oh, I'm nodding too much, but I recognize the fact that I was very, very lucky for that to be one of my first gigs.
Nice. Nice. Do you have any memorable? Yeah. You have any memorable moments from the time that you're on the red carpet? Just to tag onto what Carlo is asking, what are some of the most memorable moments when you're on the red carpet that you can maybe some highlights during that time, or if not, it's all good. But do you have any?
No, it's fine. I'm just thinking. Well, what I think, because there have been so many. I think the funniest one was waiting, I think, hours for Benedict Cumberbatch to show up for The Grinch. And him showing up because usually the red carpets are right before a screening. And sometimes the stars go in and sometimes they get dressed, they come out, they do an interview and they turn right around and they get back in the car. So he was really funny because I was talking to him about Doctor Strange versus Grinch. And he was like, you know what? If Grinch had some rings. And it was a lot of fun. I think another red carpet that was stunning for me was actually inside New York Comic Con. So a lot of people don't realize at a lot of conventions, there's press inside the convention on other floors and other rooms and things like that. And I was in a room doing press for, believe it or not, for Underground, for TheBlerdGurl. And they were behind schedule and I was sort of last online, and everybody had sort of spoken to everybody and they were cutting things off. And Aldous Hodge said to his manager, no, I'm talking to her next. For some reason, he knew who I was. I was stunned. And he was like, no, I'm talking to her and then we'll leave. And they're like, but you got to go. And he said, no, they can wait. And that made me very nervous because I was like, okay, thank you. So I never had anybody sort of just no, this person is really gonna, somebody I'm very interested in speaking with. I've never had that happen to me. I mean, I think I've had other moments, like Black Panther was a moment, but off the red carpet, oh my God. I think another moment for me, again, not red carpet related, was Orlando Jones, who I got to know through SYFY, but I've also just been able to like have conversations with. And when everything went down with him being let go, or the announcement that he was let go, which he made a couple years ago on social media when he left American Gods. And I just kind of DM'd him and I was like, would you mind having a conversation about this? And he's like, sure, when? I'm like, crap, now. Like I was running and finding my, stuff, my recorder and everything. And I was just so lucky that he decided, no, I'll tell you exactly what happened. And it was important to me to not write that article. I wanted that to be his voice saying what happened, because I knew there was going to be a lot of people saying what they think. That happens a lot when there's a disgruntled star. It doesn't matter, what ethnicity they are. But I definitely think that Black artists get a lot of more scrutiny. And it just meant so much to me that he trusted me with that. And I was able to put that up. And that podcast really made me lean into podcasting. And as opposed to, I kept thinking, oh, I would love to podcast for someone else. I would love it if somebody else produced this for me. And that's when I said, you know what? I should do this myself. And then the pandemic just kind of sealed that. Yeah,
right. Got no other choice now.
I mean, I had all the gear. I had all the stuff. I was doing it already. And just that concept. And I think the other thing, and speaking of podcasts, was I did over 150 podcasts with SYFY for the Who Won the Week podcast, and having co-hosts and coming up with concepts and producing and co-producing. I honestly think that also helped. Again, it just all went in the arsenal. It just all, so when people go, wow, you came out of nowhere, I'm like, not really, but okay.
Not really. I've been here.
Now you super impressive. You've been, like I said, you've been out here, and I've been paying attention. You hit my antennas, and you spoke in 2018. It was definitely a monumental time for sure.
It was. I was just really, really lucky to be ready, and that's why when everything started kicking off last year, not just with obviously the pandemic, the horrible things that happened around George, Floyd's murder and everything else, when social media started kicking up with publicists and marketing directors that were like, we're looking for Black people who, we're looking for people of color who, I was telling everybody, go now, now this is the signal. You've been waiting for the signal. This is the signal. This door is not staying open. In fact, it's already swinging shut. It's a very slow, it's a gas hinge. It's slowly shutting, but it's shutting. And so you need to be ready. And I feel like 2018 was one of those years. Last year was another one like that. And it's not, I think that's when the grind makes sense. People go, oh, I only have 2 viewers. I only have 5 viewers. Nobody's listening. Nobody cares. Keep going. Because at some point, there'll be somebody who needs something and you can help, or you're a guest, or you're doing something. And then boom, that's when you blow up.
Right.
It's the grind. We're on that grind.
Yeah, we out here too. You know what I mean? And definitely, I love your energy. I love what you do. I like I said, I chuck you out. I got you on my alerts on Twitch. So I definitely catch your replays. How you know what? I kind of want to know some of the fun things about you too. So tell us a little more about, what is most interesting, or what is your favorite comic book character?
It's really interesting because people forget this sometimes, because I think they see me associated with so much like big two stuff. I actually really like a lot of indie comics. So this question is so hard because there's so many. So, okay, I'm going to start with, let's go older first. So one of my favorite,
I was going to say, you could break it down by like, okay, who's your favorite Marvel, then who's your favorite DC, then who's your favorite indie? I mean, because there's just so many.
There are. All, right? There are. Absolutely so many. Okay, so I'm gonna say older. I'm still gonna say older is Monica Rambeau.
Okay.
Monica Rambeau.
Yes, because Monica Rambeau, even though people thought her first, oh, there's this new Black character that's in WandaVision, there was a lot of us that were waiting for her. She was actually the first human Captain Marvel. Right. And she was actually the first woman leader of the Avengers, but nobody likes to talk about that.
Yeah. Well, I do. I do.
So I was a huge fan of Monica Rambeau. And here's the thing. When I got into comics, and I tell people this a lot of people like to go, oh, so when did you get into comics? A lot of people who lived in the suburbs and things like that, or even in Black communities, and I was both, didn't live near a comic book shop. So a lot of our introduction to comic book characters was first through animation. And then we would backtrack and find the comics later. So like I would watch the X-Men animated series. And then later when there's comics. That was when I fell into Claremont's run. So of course I like comics, but that was the run that I liked. And I'm still waiting for an X-Men movie. Yes, I said it. I do like the standalone movies. I do like Wolverine. I do like some of the things that we've seen, but yeah. So Monica Rambeau in her, it's really funny. I feel like it was Spider-Man Annual number 16. I believe. I know someone's going to yell at me if I got that wrong, but her first appearance was definitely in a Spider-Man Annual, and I saw that somebody at school had this book. I saw this book. I'm like, who is this fuck with the afro on this cover? And then when I opened it up, it was fantastic because she was like handling her business, and Spider-Man was trying to help her. And she was like, I'm good. I don't need your help. I got this. The
one with the white? Does she have her white costume on, or is it?
Yes, she had. And then the cover is like, she's like, the cover's red, but you see the black of the back, a Black woman, because you could tell the hair.
Right.
Yeah. And oh my God, and I fell in love with her after that. But what was so sad was because I'm a sucker for secondary characters. They didn't know what to do with her storyline. So they kept naming her. So she was, Lady of Light. She was Captain Marvel. Then she was, she was Spectrum. She was Photon. She's had a ton of different names, ton of different hairstyles. I think my favorite run of hers was in Agents of Hate, because that whole thing was pure comedy, because she actually got to meet the Captain Marvel that everybody else knows. And she was like, so you're just going to use my name though, right? That's how we're doing this. And she was like, well, it's kind of like an ex. I didn't, it's like an ex. You don't just date somebody and not have a conversation. It's like, well, you weren't using it. It was just such a really funny breaking of the fourth wall thing. But she's actually one of the most powerful people. Right. And I just love her relationship with Adam Brashear, Blue Marvel. I don't know why we don't have Blue Marvel yet, live action, but we'll get there. Yeah. And then I think newer, again, remember, I was animation before I was comics, Virgil Hawkins. So,
oh my God.
Static. So I was really excited about Static and his sisters. And even the little Black Lightning animated series where Thunder and Lightning were kids. I love that. And so all of these live action things and reboots, I love what Vita Ayala has done with this reboot. I love Nicholas Draper Ivy's art. I mean, I'm a manga fan anyway. Right. But remember I mentioned X-Men and how Chris Claremont, that whole run, 80s, 90s, I thought was fantastic. But I have to say, Hickman has brought me back in. House of X, Powers of X, I'm back in. He got me. And even though it's making me crazy, his order, I'm like, you really need like red string to follow which one of these you're supposed to be reading first. But I do like Jonathan Hickman's run and a lot of the offshoots that have come from that. And then in terms of indie comics, I'm a fan of Excellence. Brandon Thomas, his work, it's for Image Comics, drawn by Kari Randolph. Really fascinated by Spencer Dales. I really want to see a live action Spencer Dales. I also got a chance to interview them. and what creating that character means to all of the creators, Brandon Thomas, Cara Randolph, and Emilio Lopez. It was profound. They were emotional in that interview, and they were talking about, because it's a father and son story hidden behind some magic. Right. And it's fascinating to hear Brandon Thomas talk about, like, these are the conversations I have not been able to ever have with my dad that I've been able to channel through Spencer. And when you see it through that lens, it's very powerful.
I think that's why I gravitate to Milestone and all the characters, and because Dwayne McDuffie, he just wanted to tell stories that people can relate to, right? And probably why we share. Me and you share, as far as Virgil or Static being one of the favorites, is because you can relate to all of the different motions and pressures and all the different things he has to cycle through and try to manage, because he doesn't think no one else can understand him the same caliber.
Yeah, but and I really like the fact that they're dealing with his trauma in this run. Like, everybody's like, oh, why is he so down? I'm like, he just saw his friends melt.
Facts.
I'm thinking.
Facts. And I think that's what I really like, is that they kept the core essence of what the whole reason why they're telling these stories is so that they can bring around stories that people can, like, I think he said, well, you can't relate to Superman. You don't know what it's like to be invincible and, or be an orphan from another planet. However, being in this situation, inner city kid, blah, 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 you can probably relate to that a lot easier. And it showed, right? I mean, the TV show and everything showed in that aspect. So I think that's awesome. And it shows even the ones that you picked. It seems like there is a pattern here on the characters you picked. Representation. I thought you was going to say Nubia, because I've seen you recently interviewed.
No, I am a fan of Nubia, but here's the thing. I'm more of a fan of Nubia now because Nubia wasn't written that much
right
back then. Like, she's been rebooted, but they can't even like Monica. And again, I think for me, I think of what influenced me first. And I saw Monica Rambeau before I saw Nubia.
Right.
Gotcha. I'm fascinated by Nubia now, and I'm so ecstatic as what they're doing, what DC's doing with her now, because I was really hoping that the standalone book that Ella McKinney did wasn't going to be the last we saw of her. Because honestly, I had some thoughts about the fact that Nubia was rebooted for DC Future State in the back of a Wonder Woman comic. I'm not and here's the thing, that happens, but usually variant covers will show you the other people. Every single variant of the first two Wonder Woman that were part of DC Future State had no Nubia on them, and I actually asked the artist point blank, what's good? And she said, I didn't even know Nubia was in this book until it dropped. Wow. So I think it was a decision that DC made. Oh, Black History Month, we got to put something out. And they put her in the back. Because Aletha Martinez has been in the business for a very long time. People don't realize that she was the person who was drawing like the Dora Milaje for Christopher Priest in his run of Black Panther. Like she was... she's been at Marvel a very long time as an assistant artist and then as a full-fledged artist. And it's interesting talking to artists like her, as well as other artists who were like, yeah, I remember when I was just an artist and not a Black artist or an Asian artist or whatever. And so it's confusing for a lot of the older creators, because they're like, yeah, I mean, yes, I'm a Black artist, but I didn't know that's a thing now. I can say that aloud. Because Aletha will tell you, she did her darndest to make sure that nobody knew she was Black or Latina or a woman so that she could get more work. So it's fascinating when you talk to some of the older artists, because it's all of this, like getting an Eisner for World of Wakanda is she said it was really confusing because she spent so much of her career trying to make sure nobody knew who she was just so she could work.
Wow. That's amazing. But that just shows you how the industry was back then and now how it's evolving now, and you know, and diversity, equality, and inclusion, and all that stuff. Well, I did want to ask one thing about the Monica Rambeau topic is, now that you've seen the live action with WandaVision, and she's going to be in the new movie Captain Marvel, The Marvels. How do you feel about that? Like, as far as like the actress that they brought on to portray Monica Rambeau, I think they did a great job with her.
Oh yeah, I love Tiana. I think she's doing a fantastic job. Here's the thing about all the Disney shows that I think is fascinating that nobody's talking about. Every single show that has been dropping on Disney Plus are about the villains.
Yeah.
The heroes are still leaving in the movies, but all the villains have been introduced in the TV show. And yes, Wanda's a villain. I don't know why people she held an entire town hostage. That's a villain. So I think Tiana Taylor is fantastic. I'm very happy to see an adult Monica, because when Captain Marvel was first announced, and I'm looking at the names and I'm seeing there's going to be a Monica, and then I saw that she was 12, I had issues. But I'm glad that she's now grown. I know it was, but that made me feel better once I saw it, because I said, you know what, it's the past, which means in the present she can be grown, and that's an opportunity. I like what they're doing with her. One day we're gonna have a conversation about the fact that, and I said this the other day on my show, that Monica put her very real body in front of Wanda's very fake children and those very real bullets. One day we're gonna have a conversation about that. But I like what they're doing. I am more curious now that Loki has ended, and basically with this introduction of the multiverse, now everything exists. Everybody could come back. Natasha could come back. Gamora could come back. Everybody could be coming back in a different timeline and a different, so it would be very interesting to see if Monica exists in this timeline in the same, is that how she's coming back? Is that how she's going to be in Captain Marvel? Or is she going to be, I love the fact that she's gone to the ship and she's, hanging out with SHIELD people and Nick. But I'm very curious to see how they're going to put this all together. But I love the fact that we've just witnessed through Loki's season finale a catalyst event that gives Kevin Feige part and parcel. He gives him the
free reign to do anything.
Yeah, he can do whatever he wants. He can even acknowledge the X-Men from the Sony movies, which I just something people need to be recast. I'm sorry. And stories need to be rewritten.
You didn't mention Fantastic Four. You okay with that, Dan?
Well, here's the thing. I didn't mind, because when you look at the time period of when the first Fantastic Four movie came out, was it amazing? No. But for the time, it wasn't that bad. This last one, but here's the thing. I want to know if we're going to have all these multiverses, if we're going to have Chris Evans' version of Johnny Storm meets, I was about to say Killmonger, Michael B. Jordan's version of I want to see, what are we doing?
That would be crazy. They do like it. Oh my gosh.
Wait, they could do that though. They could create the ultimate universe and then introduce Miles Morales, right? And then version of Fantastic Four.
We're about to get 457 Spider-Man. If Miles Morales is not live action in one of these, you're gonna hear me yell. So I definitely think that the other thing I want to see, honestly, real talk, for the next Doctor Strange movie, I definitely want to meet Brother Voodoo. I want to see him. I want to see his ghost of a brother. I want to see all that.
Doctor Strange's gonna need some help.
Yes, he's absolutely gonna need some help. Well, here's the thing. People don't realize that. Okay, so everybody on this podcast knows who Brother Voodoo is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, and you know that his brother was a mage, a practitioner that died, and then he gave him his powers. Remember the black man that was killed in the New York Sanctum? That was his brother in the movie. So I'm like, that means Brother Voodoo must be coming.
Wow.
That's
interesting.
Because that was because I was like, why is a black man got to be the first person to die in this movie? And then when I did the research, I was like, oh, okay, that's not a problem. I get it. I see where we're going. Never mind.
Gotcha.
As you were.
Voodoo actually dated Wanda too. So let's see how that.
I don't know.
Wonder Man. There's all sorts
and
of
also,
stuff
what's going on with White Vision? Where'd he go? Like, I have questions.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So, I and it's not to ream back, but I kind of want to just pick your brain on how you view this. I felt like Black Panther and Into the Spider-Verse was probably, and just my favorite of all time, 2 movies that hit and broke all kinds of marks, right? But how did you feel watching those movies, and what do you think the next movie, or how do you view the next movie to come out for as Black Panther?
For Black Panther or Into the Spider-Verse?
For Black Panther.
Black Panther. Okay. So Black Panther was momentous on so many levels. And it started so many conversations. This is the other thing I love about geekdom, when we can take some fantasy and start having like real discussions. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that was fascinating to me about the whole Black Panther, not just the storyline, but what it talked about was a very rare conversation between Africans and African Americans. And that conversation has continued since. Also, those of us who have family from the islands that are first gen, because like the conversation that was happening between the two of them, I'm like, oh my God, if this isn't my relatives, like, because there are so many relatives, people that live outside the country that did not grow up here, that are like, why are y'all always talking about white people? And African Americans are like, do you see what's happening? And it was like, no. And all of these discussions talk about history and things like that. I thought that was fascinating. I also think, so that's one area that I thought was amazing. I hope those conversations continue. Second, it brought so many non-comic book readers to the theater. So much so that I felt horrible. I actually had a chance to see, I was in Baltimore when I saw Endgame, and there was an entire Black family behind me, and you could tell that Black Panther was their first film, and they were just here for Black Panther. And when he got snapped out of existence, you would have thought a relative died. Oh my God. So, but it brought so many people. I'm sorry, Infinity Wars, not Endgame. Infinity Wars. I stand corrected. So there's so many people that were brand new to fandom, to comics, and things like that came because of Black Panther. I can't tell you how many phone calls and emails I got that were like, I know you know what this is, but tell me about Black Panther's sister, because I don't know what this means, and my kid keeps asking me, and I thought that was fantastic, because here we are having conversations. I do think, though, that fandom, since that has terrified people, which is why I tell people all the time, like, my brand is all for the casual comic book reader and the people who are like into it or got into the MCU that are confused, that want to ask questions but don't want to get screamed at on Twitter.
Right.
But like, I'm like, what do you need? I'll help. Let me help you out. Like, or people, because you can't tell new readers, okay, so pre-order a comic book at a comic book shop and then come back a month later in the middle of a pandemic to pick up your order. Like, I live in a city where McDonald's is delivered. Like, it's not gonna happen. So being able to give them back issues and go to read this digitally, or you can order this and get the entire run, means something. So there's a whole new crop of audience and fans, not just Black, of the Black Panther franchise. Right. So when the new one drops next year, I know everybody's waiting with bated breath to see what they're going to do because of the untimely passing, you know, of Chadwick Boseman. And no, they're not recasting Chadwick, but there is a very, very large storyline with Shuri as the Panther that's sitting right there across several books.
Right.
And like the whole Doom Wars saga and everything, there's so much. And again, for those of you who read comics, you know what I'm talking about. But if you don't, that's okay. I want to be surprised. I trust Ryan Coogler. I trust his team. I want to trust Letitia, but I need her to sit down and not say anything crazy before anything else crazy before this movie comes out.
Yeah,
because I don't want them to replace her. I want her to still be Shuri for continuity's sake, and I want her to wear the crown because there is a storyline where they do not know where Black Panther is. They do not know where T'Challa is, and she's running things, and that is perfect for what could drop
good
next
segue.
year.
I am, good segue, because I'm in agreement sort of with that, because I do like when they introduce Shuri. I like what they've done with her as far as the character goes and how she's the smartest person in the MCU. And they've said that, and in comics also. I just think that trying to convert her, this is just my person, but trying to convert her into that storyline as the Black Panther running I can get her running the kingdom also, but there's just something about it where we're talking about STEM that really, like, I don't want to take that part away from her to go see her.
But honestly,
to go see her do an action fighting scene, right?
But in the comics, she didn't. She fought different, even in the comics. And they could still use the tech. That was her thing with remember in the movies with T'Challa, like, look, brother, everything can always be made better.
Right.
Like, you don't want to improve anything, but I stay improving stuff. So, I think that there's tons of opportunities there. There's also tons of opportunities for the Dora.
Right.
I also think it's fascinating what they did with White Wolf, because in the comics, White Wolf is actually is also a white man, but he's T'Challa's stepbrother. And I think it's fascinating that now Bucky is White Wolf. The thing I don't want them to do is turn Black Panther 2 into a Captain America movie. Like, I want him to be there. Captain America can show up, but I don't want it to be about him. I want it to be about Wakanda. I want it to be about Shuri, and that's just my wish. There's also a number of other baddies that could make appearances. And also think about it. If we now have this whole multiverse thing happening, it is possible. They said they wouldn't recast. Feige has said things before that have changed. So it's possible by the end of the movie, we meet maybe T'Challa from the intergalactic,
there's a comic series of like the intergalactic Wakanda, something.
Planet of Wakanda. So we don't know, right? But I definitely think whatever is done, they're obviously going to pay homage to what has come before, but I really think that Shuri could step up. And this is going to sound crazy, but she could transform, especially if she dies. And those of you who've read Ta-Nehisi Coates' run are going to know what that means. Not actually die. So we'll see. But I'm really excited. And then again, I'm excited again about having geekdom, having these conversations, like what they did with Watchmen, what DC did with Watchmen, what happened with Lovecraft Country, although they were robbed by not having a second season, had problems. But I had
no argument here.
17 Emmy nominations, by the way.
Right.
No argument
but
here.
No season 2. But I like the fact that I was having real world conversations based on science fiction. I like that because I think so many people are really nervous about having conversations about anything about race or class or war or anything right now because of reality, which is a very real feeling to have. That when you can say, okay, but let's talk about Dr. Manhattan for a minute, you know, and let's talk about even The Boys, which is, you know, obviously not for kids and is a hard watch because it can be very violent if you're not into, you know, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
But if you can watch horror movies, you can watch The Boys. There's commentary there. And I like having those conversations. I really like having those conversations more than I like having, well, okay, how many of this comic did you read? You're not a real
Right.
geek because you didn't watch that many movies and you didn't, you know, there's
Right.
700 streaming services. Okay. There's no way for one person to watch every single adaptation of everything that's ever been done and still eat, sleep, and take care of themselves. Like,
Mhm.
so I'm excited though. I'm really excited about that movie and about like other stuff that's coming out.
Dope. That's what's up.
You know, there's something that I think you and PK touched on a little bit on Static Shock, and something that I found interesting. So, what you said was growing up, you didn't have like a comic store around the corner. You had to go out further to the comic store. And I remember when I was growing up with all the comic stores around me, I never even
Yeah.
knew about them. I didn't even know about Static Shock till PK mentioned. And then I started seeing Nicola's art, and I was like, "Oh my, this is great! How did I never seen this before? This is amazing!" And
Yeah,
it's almost
Static and Hardware and
Icon and
Icon and Rocket. That's dropping in a
Rocket.
couple weeks too.
Blood
it was
Syndicate.
it's almost like back then that maybe it had to do with, you know, the culture back then, that they didn't put these comics out in the kind of neighborhoods I grew up around.
Oh, absolutely. No, absolutely. It all comes down to what the shops buy. Now, here's the thing. I'm not going to go and say bash shops, but here's if a shop is in a predominantly white neighborhood and they're trying to sell, remember, they can't return what they don't sell. So they got to eat that cost. So they're buying all these comics. They're trying to push them out the door, which is why indie comics really flailed for a long time. Because they know if there's Spider-Man, Superman, Wonder Woman, if some X-Men, if those are on the cover, they know they will move. So and also, here's the other thing, Carlo, comics didn't come out as often growing up as they do now. They're coming out every 2 minutes. You know, you used to have to wait every 3 months. You know, people think between even movies. People think between, you know, even all the Star Wars movies. Oh my God, it takes them 2 or 3 years to make a movie. I'm like, it used to take 7 years between movies before.
Wow.
Like, come on. So
Yeah.
I think in terms of your comic book shop, they were probably looking at their clientele, and DC, who was marketing Milestone at the time, they were independent, but they were marketed by them.
Yep.
They were looking at the demographic going, these units will never move. So let's put them in other neighborhoods. So I also think, you know, it's what comic shops were willing to buy and take a chance on. Now, there are some stores that did take a chance because they knew they had a clientele that was open to new and different stuff. Music stores used to go through the same thing. Yes, kids, there was a store that used to buy music. They came on these little round discs. Anyway, so yeah, I think that to your comment, I don't think it was necessarily on purpose in that they were like, oh, we don't want anybody to see these Black characters. They just didn't think they would move. Just like most indie comics. Now, today, if somebody was to say that to you today, I'm not putting that in my store. Then yes, that's racism.
Yeah. I mean, it did change the game. However, like when Static's cartoon, I mean, it won awards. It did everything it needed to do to get people to say, who is this and where did this come from? Right. It was like between Batman and Justice League, right? It came on between and Teen Titans, and everyone tuned in to watch this. So it did. I think part of the animation is it brings that crowd who is not, like you said, the people, just like how you mentioned the Black Panther who are non-comic book readers to see an adaptation of something different that they never seen before, didn't even know this could be written this way, right? And I think that's part of why it's special is, Dwayne McDuffie, like, again, he wanted to, and he was the same dude behind Justice League and all that. He wrote those stories too. And
yeah, he wrote him and Dennis Cowan and Michael Davis and the whole team. I mean, one of his last animated movies was Doom.
Doom. Yep.
And that was that was the one where Batman had a kill switch for everybody.
Yep.
The whole Justice League was like, wait, so you trying to figure out how to kill us? He's like, oh, obviously. He's like, I'm not. He's like, I know I'm one of the. Yeah, he's like, right. He's like, I know I'm the only like non-meta on this team. I'm not,
right.
And one of y'all have a bad day and we all die. I don't think so.
Right.
I can, based off the conversation about Static, I can only imagine how lit y'all gonna be when they make a movie about him. Right.
I'm excited, but but I'm nervous. And here's the thing. I'm actually very nervous. I'll tell you the other thing that I'm fascinated by also with Static. There's a lot of us that are nostalgic because I had a discussion with somebody who was like, oh, I don't like the fact that they changed his origin story. I'm like, he was still shot at by police with an agent of something that gave him his powers. Yes. Like, well, I don't like the fact that he was at a Black Lives Matter rally. I'm like, why? That's now.
Exactly.
Like, it doesn't make any sense for him to be at a protest. That it doesn't. It's strange that you think that that's a problem. I am very curious because here's the thing: when Milestone dropped, there was nothing else like it. Not on the mainstream scene. There were indie comics out that were like it, but there wasn't anything mainstream like it, so it had mass appeal. Now it's got competition. I mean, I just mentioned Excellence. There's all of the, N.K. Jemisin has fantasy books that are now being adapted. There, David Walker's comic about the family of monster hunters is being adapted also. For some reason, the title of that comic just went right out of my head. But Bitter Root is being adapted. Like all of these different movies and shows, we've got new stuff dropping on Netflix every week. So I'm going to be
coming this fall.
Yep. Naomi's coming as well. So it's like, there's so many different heroes. And look at this at the CW. I mean, they've given us a black Batwoman, and they're about to give us a Batwing. So it's going to be interesting, not just watching Static come out, but watching Static come back out as live action now.
Right.
And still keep its essence of the the idea.
It's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, because there's a whole, like, anybody that's a fan of Miles Morales with electrical powers is gonna see Static and go, it's like, okay, so he's like Black Lightning's little kid with Spider-Man's powers.
They all say that,
right?
And they don't realize it.
Yeah, would you prefer it being a feature film or a series like on whatever Amazon?
Honestly,
CW? I don't know. Yeah.
Honestly, I would rather an animated series first and then a live action adaptation. And the only reason why I'm saying that is because of the pandemic, which we're not out of. I don't care what anybody's telling you. Right. We're not out of this pandemic yet. So an animated series could be up quicker, could keep it in the zeitgeist faster, could basically be the storyboard for the live action
and marketing.
Right. And marketing, things like that, especially if you're trying to get to another generation, the generation of parents who are like, let my kid watch this show on the iPad while I do all the other things, or let me watch this with my family on the weekends. Because one thing that is a through line for all of the Static, Virgil Hawkins issues it's always been a family show and a family comic. So if it ends up on the CW, I mean, I'll be nervous. But if it ends up on the CW, it won't surprise me because that is that family YA market. But I hope it doesn't because reasons.
100%.
Yeah, though I do think that CW has done a good job with I think so far that has been my favorite DC show on that network.
No, I agree, and I think it's because it's outside of the Arrowverse.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think Black Lightning did a really good job too.
Oh man,
that
yes.
existed outside of the Arrowverse. Also, what they were able to introduce people to. Again, everybody just knew Black Lightning, because you also have to remember 2016 is when Luke Cage broke Netflix.
Right.
2018 is when actually Black Lightning dropped in January. So yeah, 2018 was Black Lightning, Black Panther, Spider-Man into Spider-Verse. So there's a whole group of people who were like, oh my God, Black superheroes. This is amazing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really, really interesting to see everybody latch onto these characters now. But I also think that, again, what the Akils were able to do with that storyline, especially in the beginning, towards the end, it got a little lethargic, but especially in the beginning, what they were able to do and how real Thunder and Lightning were,
Right.
I thought were fantastic. I really hope we get to see Thunder and Lightning. If they ever do a Young Justice live action, I hope we get to see Thunder and Lightning again.
Yeah, so they in Young Justice season 2, they loosely went over what was it?
You're talking about the animated Young Justice?
Yeah, the animated Young Justice. It was loosely the Batman's covert team, right?
Right. So if they were able, I mean, Titans is about to give us Red Hood, so I don't know. There's a lot happening. There's a lot happening. I just saw that trailer. I was like, there's a lot.
Yeah, it is. Well, we'll see. I think it's going to be exciting. I think we waited and they put in the time and effort and was patient, and I think they're going to give us some quality as we go forward. That's for sure. And like you said, there's a lot of competition, a lot of independent comics that put out some really high quality stuff. Not just talking about story writing, but also their art, the coloring, everything, just top notch. So it is a competition. I'm hopeful though. I am hopeful that, because Michael B. Jordan is the producer of the movie, and I'm hopeful that he brings it around and keeps the essence. So
he's actually going to produce the movie. They're actually working on it.
He's one of the Outliers Society, I think, is one of the producers.
Yeah.
We know that the crew is going to be diverse, though. He's doing the same thing Ava's doing behind the scenes, which is fantastic.
Dope. Which is awesome. So what's shifting gears just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I know we danced on the comics, but you play video games too, right?
Yes, I have. It's so funny because everybody's like, "You're on Twitch. Why aren't you streaming video games?" And I'm like, because I don't like failing in public. That's why. But I'm working on it. So my boyfriend's a hardcore gamer. So and it's funny because I just got him to start streaming. But I actually, literally, one of the ways I relax at the end of the day is just sitting back. I have my own personal Twitch, and that's my boyfriend. I just watch him game. But yes, I am. When I game, it's actually to relax. So it's one of two things. I have two spectrums. So no pun intended. I am both either I'm playing like Spiritfarer, like indie games like Spiritfarer or Journey that are very chill and very calm, Abzu, that are just, let me just relax. Or it's like Tekken or Mortal Kombat. It's like one of those extremes.
She went extreme. She went to
either I'm
taking somebody's head off.
Exactly. Either I'm meditating or I'm ripping somebody's spine out of their bodies. I'm actually old school Tekken. I'm old Eddie Gordo fan. I was devastated when they took him out of the game. So happy that he's back. They only took him out because they know that we could win with him.
Because anybody can win with him.
Yes. There you go. There you go. So, so that's what I play. It's funny. A lot of people have been trying to get me into RPGs. Again, my boyfriend is a huge RPG player. He loves Mass Effect. He loves all of these. I make decisions for a living. Okay.
Dope guy.
So what So when I sit down to relax, I don't want to have to make all these decisions.
Right.
I just want to shoot something or swim. But yes, I understand the appeal of Mass Effect. I understand the storylines and everything like that. I also love the one that just dropped. Is it Legendary? Mass Effect Legendary?
It's like ultimate version of all
Legendary.
three of the
Legendary. You can play all three. That I love that. Spider-Man is also Spider-Man Miles Morales. Shout out to Evan Narcissus, who I also have on the show because I teased him about the Bodega Cat. He will not claim that he was the person that personally wrote the Bodega Cat, but he definitely had something to do with it. He also had something to do with Miles's lineup, which thank God, because his hair looked terrible in the first video game. But yeah, so I am playing games, but I don't want to call myself a gamer because I feel like there's so many people out there that are very, very good at it. But I will be adding some of those chill games definitely to my stream soon. Not yet, but soon. And I really I want to get into things like Fall Guy, but I know it's gonna make me angry.
Someone's gonna just fun then.
Wait, you
drop
don't
kick me.
Rage.
But I like these quirky indie games like Moving Out, where you're moving somebody from you're moving someone's house, but you're breaking all their stuff as you go. I love that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I was just playing that on Xbox Game Pass.
Isn't that? Oh, I didn't realize. See, I saw it. I think it's available on everything: Xbox, PS5, maybe PS4. I'm not sure. And then there's a lot of games that just look way too hard for me to play, but I'm fascinated by. I saw somebody playing Mirror's Edge actually the other day, and it's really funny because years ago when Mirror's Edge dropped, that's when I was actually really more into console gaming. And Mirror's Edge made me put down the controller and stop gaming altogether for years because that game made me so angry. Now I come to find out that I'm just not that good at first person stuff. I'm better at third, but it just traumatized me and I hated it. And I hated all video games. And I didn't even put down Tekken. I put down everything for a very long time.
I gotta ask you a question. I know that you play a lot of different indie games, but have you ever heard of this awesome thing called Xbox Game Pass? I just had to ask you because there is a ton of indie stuff on there.
Yeah, no, I have heard of Xbox Game Pass, and real talk, I have two. We've got a PS4 and a PS5 years ago, and I'm not lying when I say I lost the Xbox in the divorce. Because I really did. I got divorced and he got the Wii and the Xbox and I got the PS4. So I actually just never thought about getting it again. But now that we have a PS5 in the house and that is totally manipulated by my boyfriend, I actually am thinking about getting an Xbox.
That'd be awesome.
And yes, I have, and I also have I have a Mac, so I've downloaded Steam. So I'm gonna be getting into some of my Steam games too. Because people keep recommending things to me on Humble Bundle, and I'm like, okay, wait, I need Steam for this. So I just I just upgraded to my Mac M1. Everybody wanted me to get a PC, but I'm not there yet. I'm getting there. But my thing is, I like really good stuff. So if I get a PC, I'm gonna call somebody that I know and have them build me a PC. So I could do it right, or her, and have them build it for me so it's right and has all the things, because I am not building this.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but I will investigate. Trust me, I'm sure you and everybody else will know. But if somebody wants to get me an Xbox, I will download Xbox Game Pass. Yes, I will.
You know, a cool thing is I think Game Pass is on PC as well. So
is it really?
Good. Yeah. You can get Game Pass on PC, and you can play the games on the PC, like the PC versions. And
I did not know this.
earn achievements, which is my favorite part. They still pop up.
And they cross over. Like if I was to get
some of them
console, they do. Because you know how you hate that, right? Like that happened to me. I started Spiritfarer on PS4, and now that I was like, cool, I'll play it on Steam. Oh, I have to start over.
Some of them, yeah. Some of them are cross cross save.
Some of them are
Cross-platform.
cross play, some of them aren't. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I grew up with my brothers completely buying consoles and breaking them so they could play region free and things like that. Like, I get it. I just didn't do it. I was too busy like watching animation and anime.
Animation.
You stick around us long enough, you be playing Game Pass on your phone. You be having it on your laptop. Yeah, you be on the road, have it all over the place. Where's my controller?
Yeah,
So okay,
this device could turn into an Xbox machine. I
Yes,
can play
just-
an Xbox library just on this.
I have seen plenty of people doing that. Okay, so if naming what I've named, what if I am to get Xbox Game Pass, what would you suggest playing for me?
Well, there's a lot of indies. Is Spiritfarer still on Game Pass? Because it was in there at one time. That was in there. What do you recommend, PK?
He's like, I don't know, because I don't play quiet games like that.
No, I mean, there's Overcooked, there's Ori, there's Tetris, there's Bloodroot,
But wait, I've seen
so
that
many.
Tetris. That Tetris is horrifying. That
There's
Tetris
going under.
It moves so fast.
Sometimes you can slow it down.
But
The thing is, you got all this. You do got options, right? So you can definitely check it out.
I do like the retro games too. So I don't have an emulator or anything like that, but I do like some of the newer versions of the older games, like Tetris, like you mentioned.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean,
There's
games-
River City
Girls.
Girls. Yes.
Yes, that's on Game Pass.
Okay, now maybe I will get it because I used to love that game.
Yes.
And there's a new indie game coming out on July 29th called The Ascent. That's gonna be on Game Pass.
There's a Gang Beast.
Gang Beast is a lot of fun. If you play that with your boyfriend, you can knock him off ledges, blimps, and crates and stuff, and you can make him angry. Oh yeah, it's a fun game. We make each other angry.
I already made him angry on Tekken. He was like, "Let's play Tekken." He challenged me to a game of Tekken at his mom's house over a year ago at New Orleans during New Year's. I'm like, "No, let's not do this. It's fun." He's like, "No."
She said,
I
"You
play
don't
with
want
you."
to smoke.
I was like, "Let's
Don't
not do
do
this.
this."
Let's not do this." And then I beat him soundly 3 times. And he was pissed. And it was in front of his family. I was like, "This is what I told you. You didn't want to do this." But
that's
like,
why he
if
got
I
the
was
PS5 and don't let it
right,
just-
and that's why he wants me to play Mass Effect so he can watch me die over and over and over again
Oh,
because he knows I'm terrible at it. I think he's actually currently playing Warframe. Because TennoCon just happened and he had put that one down for oh my god, he had put that one down for of course Mass Effect. But what was the game that was breaking? Oh, not Overwatch.
You mean
There was a game that was out that everybody was really, really upset about because
Cyberpunk.
Well, no, Cyberpunk was destroyed. That was terrible. I think the only place you can play Cyberpunk now is on Steam, and it's not busted.
Well, you can play it on Xbox. And,
it's not busted there. It's not busted.
I mean,
And
the
Spiritfarer
game
plays
has bugs, right? Like you can super jump sometimes or fly in the air if a car hits you, kind of stuff.
Okay.
But other than that, the Xbox plays it really well. They did patch it, and it's back on PS5 also. So there's some patches there. But what was I gonna say? That another thing too is with Xbox Game Pass, you get day and date of Xbox first party studios, and they've purchased so many studios now, like Bethesda and everybody else. So you would get like Psychonauts 2, be able to play that day and date comes out. If you like racing games or your boyfriend likes racing, Forza, be there day and date.
Halo I'm not telling him that. Halo, but yeah, I'm not telling him that because I'll never see him again. Halo, I mean, but Halo, I might be interested in that one.
Day and date in Game Pass.
Because I'm an old school Master Chief fan, so okay, I'm gonna have to.
See, I told you stick around us. You just
we buy all the
happening.
subscription services.
So, but here's the thing: I
Comixology.
enjoy, and the funny thing is, I enjoy playing games. I enjoy gaming, but the funny thing is, when people are watching you, it gets more nerve-wracking. And that's why I haven't live streamed it yet. So that's why I'll probably do my chill games first to get used to people watching me do stuff. Because I will fail 150 times until I get it. But I don't think anybody wants to watch me do that.
Listen, I can't remember his name, but it was a 7-year-old man. What was he playing? He was playing Pokemon or something, and he had millions of people watching him, trying to coach him through it. It was crazy. But he enjoyed it.
So I'll just wait until I'm 70 then. That's when I'm
Well, just do what PK does. On the last episode of our podcast, he turned himself into a cat with face rig from. They have this
my God
program, and he turned himself into a cat because he was too tired to be on camera. So when his mouth moved, the cat's mouth moved.
Cat move. Yes, I know somebody else who does that. I might do that, and then I don't even have to put makeup on. That'd be fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, Judge. I'm not a cat. That's awesome, yo. You guys,
I know that we're
all right.
We're past the
Wrap it
hour
up on
mark,
time.
and I feel
Yeah.
so bad, but this has been so much fun talking to you. Like all the
thank
comic
you.
stuff, and oh man, I could talk for hours.
Yeah.
About comic books. I got 13
Absolutely.
long big boxes.
That's what
out
I'm
there.
saying. I see your little setup there. Yes.
I'm just saying, I told you you're like a distant cousin. It's like home, you know what I mean? So definitely enjoy having conversations for sure.
Awesome. And now that I know that you guys know so much about Xbox, and Paris, you work for Xbox. Can you hook a sister up?
hit me on the DM. We can
but now that I know that you can actually use Game Pass without the actual platform, then I might investigate.
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go.
And it's
It'll
fast.
get you started.
Any
get
Bluetooth
you
controller, I believe, works now with Game Pass on the phone. I might be wrong, Paris. Correct me if I'm wrong. But they got the Razer key that puts the phone into like almost like this wide kind of controller. It looks really cool. Like a
Yes.
Switch.
Yes,
got
I was going to
that.
say I've seen it like the Switch. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look,
You can
I
play
just
with,
found it. Somebody else was telling me that how I could turn my iPhone into a Switch, and I was like, oh God, here we go. Y'all are never gonna see me again.
Yeah.
We'll get you together, that's for sure. Listen, I know one thing I just want to touch on, and I just want to make sure everyone knows, like, if you can touch on it. I don't know how much time you got, but I just want to see if you can elaborate on what you're working on, and you know, anything that's particular you could talk about that people, your fans, can get excited for.
So sure, I can talk about a bunch of different things. So I think the biggest thing that's coming up, the quickest, is on July 24th. I am actually going to be talking to the cast of Genlock, including Michael B. Jordan and Dakota Fanning, and the director of season 2. Yep, because there is a season 2 of Genlock that is coming.
I was about to say, like, yo.
Yes, season 2 is coming. Well, there was a little bit of controversy with the origins of the show, and there was some interesting things that happened over at Rooster Teeth. Rooster Teeth is still producing it. They're co-producing it again with Michael B. Jordan's company, Outlier Productions. And again, diverse animation team, diverse voice cast. So it's got like Maisie Williams and David Tennant and any Doctor Who fans out there. So yeah, it's got a lot of amazing people. I don't get to talk to all of them, but I do get to talk to Michael B. Jordan. On Saturday, July 24th, 6 p.m. Pacific. So like I said, makes it 9 p.m. Eastern over here. But you can go to San Diego Comic-Con at home to check out the full schedule for that. TheBlerdGurl Live. For those of you who are just hearing about me, yes, I do have a show called TheBlerdGurl Live, 8 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday. I'm on a little bit of a hiatus. I always take a break every 10 weeks just so I won't hate myself or other people. Self-care, it's a thing because I got a lot of stuff going on. But the biggest reason why I actually had to take a break, which not many people know about, is I'm working on a book. I can't tell you what the book is about yet. In the fall, I'll be able to talk about it. So I got that happening. And then my podcast, the actual podcast that you can listen to on iTunes and everything, that is actually going to be dropping again, starting on 23rd, this Friday. So you'll be able to hear me. So even though I'm not live with a lot of people right now because I'm working on a bunch of other things, you're going to be able to watch all of these reruns and things because it's really funny. In the past few months, I've gotten all these new people who've learned about me and they don't know anything of the other stuff that I've done. So I've got some interviews coming up with Matthew Cherry, Peter Ramsey, Tanana Reeve Dew, a bunch of people coming out. So I can't wait to share. Oh, and I also interviewed the LaShawn Thomas, who created Yasuke, and the writing team from Yasuke. So that's coming up too.
Awesome.
That's nice. Those are good one-offs that Netflix had a good pickup on, I think. So
they did. And
awesome.
Also, if you want exclusives, if you want to see stuff, just like you were saying early, day and date, you have to be a Patreon subscriber. So that's patreon.com/TheBlerdGurl.
BlerdGurl pass.
Nice.
Yes, ooh, nice. I'm gonna make one of those.
So where can we find you at on the interwebs?
I'm basically the Blerd Girl everywhere. TheBlerdGurl. I get mail on Twitter. Y'all know you see me there all the time. But you can also find me on Instagram. And there, I don't know if it's going to be up by the time this airs, but there is a Discord in my future.
Oh, nice.
So it's being built right now. So I'm very excited about that. So I will be able to all hang out and watch movies and things like that. And I've realized since the pandemic has started that community is a thing. We can't all work as, islands. And I think a lot of people are tired of just fighting other people on the internet and just want places to chill out and hang out. And so my Discord hopefully is going to be one of those places.
Facts.
Awesome.
That's awesome. Well, I want to thank you for joining us today. It's been awesome talking to you and your history into things, and comic book fandom is fantastic, by the way. It's great.
Yes.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for coming out and hanging out with us.
I appreciate it. And thank you. And shout out to your whole crew, everybody out there that's listening. This is amazing. And you guys, please keep doing the amazing stuff that you're doing, because your channel is awesome. My channel wants to be your channel when it grows up.
The grind is real. Grind is real. Thank you for sure.
Thank you.